Well, I do want to come on to say there's just a little bit more to do whenever it comes to these little nativities we make and how we all just kind of do little things like we do them. And, I tell y'all, it's been quite some adventures I've been through a few days, and I think I'm getting over my virus, but do think this time around it's probably just allergies that are kind of making me sick, making it so I can't go to work, pick up trays in the cafeteria because of my acid reflux along with my sinus drainage. Just can't eat anything that's going to keep me from having low blood sugar. So that's kind of why I get a little, feeling a little lightheaded while I'm out working. And sometimes the only thing I can do at that moment is just get me a drink of some water from the fountain. That's the only way I can really get myself so much better. And kind of how little things work now. I'll tell y'all there's little things we're going to do just to kind of make the little hands, And so, like I said, I've already kind of demonstrated these nativities before, so as I carve along them, I might just kind of talk about little random topics as we go about the challenge here, and just to kind of try to keep the series of videos continued. There's probably going to be a lot more we have to say here, and I'd say probably because of things I forgot to measure, I might be chipping off a little too much, I'd say. So we kind of got to use a little more caution here, what we do, what we say. I say that this is just the kind of work that makes its way along this little mess here, and then we kind of got a little ways to go about this where we carve certain lines into certain things and take them where a little work makes its way to us. I say, probably would say there were a few lines I should have made already. So I think we're going to try to measure them out here. Try to get out whatever I did with that ruler. I've got plenty of them here. That's why I buy them in bunches, because I'm always mislaying them and losing them. And so it just kind of gets where it gets a little crazy here and there, where we try to work our way about little things of life and get past what we do. And oh, I tell y'all, little work of life that comes along, I say, may this forever just be a lasting thing. I say, oh, and finally finding some work along this way where we take things along to the narrow path. And I'll tell you all, there were some things, the little step I did on these Marys, I already did them on these Josephs this morning before going into work, and I'd say that that was how just a little work like that had to come along, and then to where we get the time when we work a little ways along and make it where it's going to come out a little better to us. Oh, I say that there's little lines I forget to put in things sometimes, but really shouldn't. Should always remember to do it. And I think there's a couple of things we're getting taken care of here, so that's going to be for the best of us, for the rest of us. And I'd say that there's going to be other lines we're going to make later on, and I'd say we work our way to it, work our way through it. And so, as for a little extra work we do, I say make these little hands like this, and little folding hands for little critters and characters, I say. And as for how little time we got in little things, I say, oh, working out the times where we see how things will come along, work our way in stuff, work our way out of stuff. I say that we got the little best of things that we make, and so maybe we'll make like a little more cuts along here, along the edge of the hands, to kind of make them a little steadier and sturdier, and see how they're going to be good to come out to, and be a little thing that's going to brighten us up each one of our days and nights and lives for all the better. I say sometimes there's a step I might take too soon. Sometimes I might take it sooner than I should. Sometimes there's a step or two I might kind of get past, might skip at the right point and come back and redo later, but I say that it's just how the work comes along. Just to talk to y'all about little random things, I tell y'all that I did something I hadn't done in a long time, which was play a game with some people. I was in McLeod's Coffee House today, and we kind of played a little Candyland. That was something I hadn't really played that really since I was a kid, but I mean, I tell y'all, it's just something that it was all for the good of the game. You know, sometimes us grown-ups, if we're kind of like special needs adults, we might play little kid games like that sometimes. We kind of get our little pleasure from things like that and learn a lot from it, do a lot from it. I say it was all just for the better in us. Make us all see brighter days, brighter evenings, brighter nights, oh, and all these things we never know in life until we experience them for ourselves. You know, and sometimes we get around people and we learn about the boundaries they have. Some people want hugs, not everybody does. Everybody gets a little different. Kind of have to learn about people. And boundaries were just a really important thing that I had to learn in life, even whenever it comes to children, to that matter. And I recently had a friend who made a post about her child, telling her about how children have boundaries and about how her child, you know, she never speaks up for herself, her mommy will, and told us that her child, she would not allow her to be forced to hug, kiss, high five, or be tickled by any human being. So that was really a valuable lesson I needed to learn. I needed to read that, I told her. And I just thanked her so much that she posted it, because I just had a lot to learn there. And she was just thankful for me for the fact that I was willing to learn and open to learning, because it was just a lot to say, a lot to do, a lot to know. But I say little times in life we know what we do and what we say, and sometimes the little things we can do can just mean a lot or mean the most. And I tell you, there's probably been a lot of people who couldn't teach me that, but she could. And little things I said, you know, I said maybe this could also be a lesson for me to kind of try to respect the boundaries, even of kids whose parents won't do what you will. Sometimes the way I like to play with them can always not be the best thing they enjoy the most. And I'd say when I was in my early 20s, there were little kids my grandmother used to babysit. I used to like sometimes just smother their cheeks with kisses sometimes, and sometimes they'd be in the mood for it and sometimes not, and some of them liked it, some of them didn't, and sometimes I didn't always know when to stop even when they wanted me to. And I'd save all things, you know, look back and learn about the boundaries it was important for them to set. There was one kid in particular I did that with, and when she got tired of it, she'd say, "No more sugar, no more sugar." And I'd say, yes, important things in life. And with all important things we learn, there are times when we learn that boundaries can be clear, they need to be set. I'm thankful for the things I've gotten to learn in life and all the things where we just kind of know that I've had a lot of stuff to learn as far as just being able to read people's cues in life, learn where people were coming from, and I've kind of ventured around to some places and learned little different things about culture sometimes, you know. Sometimes I'd say there were places I went this summer where I learned a lot of things about cultural differences and a lot of things where, you know, the Lord kind of spoke to me. He said, "Jonathan," he said, I don't want you to go back home and talk bad about what you experienced here. Because I tell you, you know, I mean, cultures can be kind of different, but it's just best to kind of learn not to be prejudiced against people. It gets kind of hard sometimes because, you know, it happens in this world, and that's kind of the reason why we just see a lot of things where a lot of suspicion of crime goes on, where somebody just sees a certain person and judges them by the color of their skin, assumes they're a criminal or that they've done something wrong just because their skin's a certain color. You know, that's just a horrible world we have to live in. So we kind of got to get past that, learn how to kind of accept each other sometimes. You know, sometimes I get little prejudices myself at times, and when it comes to kind of different generations, you know, sometimes there's times in life where I just have to kind of learn to avoid places because, you know, people kind of act different as time goes on, and things will just change a little bit to where we don't always see the difference between one time and another. But I think about how there's that place in Ecclesiastes where King Solomon says, "One generation passes away and another one comes, but earth abides forever." It's just kind of his way of saying that earth will abide for a long, long time. You know, according to the Bible, the earth really won't last forever because there's going to be a new heavens and a new earth. But, you know, when you read that book, you kind of got to understand that Solomon's just kind of speaking from his own viewpoints sometimes. And I say there's a lot to learn. The Bible can be pretty deep. I mean, you know, I've learned it because I grew up in the minister's house and had a lot to learn from it, and a lot of things that really crossed my mind, and little things I've learned in life, and a lot of lessons just had to be applied just by looking in the Bible and learning about other people and learning where all kind of got little trials to face in life, and even just kind of, I'd say, you know, learning in life about how you kind of got to learn things where, you know, sometimes, you know, learn about how people's cues work and how somebody may not be really enjoying life as much as you think they are. They could have it a whole lot worse than you do, maybe. And, you know, there's things where we discover all this stuff as far as how times go and how people can change. And I say that there's been a lot I've found out in life. Thankfully, there's just things where I don't really have flu or COVID, but back around Christmas time, I kind of had some COVID and posting on Facebook about being ready to meet my Savior, and had a friend comment to me saying, "I'll be praying for you, and if it's that bad, go to the hospital." replied saying, I say physically, I don't really think it is that bad. Probably just kind of how I felt a little more emotionally at the time. And I want to say that these little works can make the way around. So much of this I remember from all the times I've done it before. Little interesting ways we go about things. And I'd say that there's a place where we come along Mary's little cloak or Joseph's little cloak. I'd say for one thing that I've probably kind of have so much to say and to share. I'll kind of make this little line here to go along the coat here to make it so it's going to be a little blessed way to go, and may not make this video too long, but did just kind of have random thoughts, random facts to share, and I just can't wait to get these nativities done because they're just the kinds of things which around a certain time of year just sell the best of all things I make. And I'd say that a lot of people like them, a lot of people love them, and I've probably got one left that has probably been around for over, I'd say, like a couple of years, and still has the year 2021 written on it because that was when I made it. Back in those days when all I really had to coat things with was linseed oil, but these days I decided to get back out the real finish and work on them using what was better, what would probably be what people pay a little more for, kind of makes a better finish for a nativity too. And it was kind of the little thing I've shared with you on my videos about what they demonstrated in the book of how to mix the gel varnish with the mineral spirits to make that kind of little finish for them. I'd say that with all the stuff I've gotten together, there's probably more things I can try after Christmas time. There's probably going to be more places I can put my work out, places I can share, hopefully even probably I'd say have enough stuff made to perhaps consider the local Lex market. And I'd say there's times of year that are kind of the best for when it comes to little projects, and times of year that are better for craft selling, because we know that when it gets to be the early months of January and February and March, it's probably not always the best time to make good sales, but sales get better over time, and eventually people start kind of purchasing for Easter, and that gets good in the springtime. And I'd say that there's just so much more to learn as far as how little craft working goes. And I just enjoy having the way that a little carving can really kind of make the talent come out. I've always enjoyed in the past making little figures and things on a little scroll saw, but I've kind of learned over time that the carving seems to see it sell better. It's really the stuff that kind of makes the talent come out. Whenever I did all that scroll saw work, all that would really show was just whatever theme I was using. Sometimes it's just better to kind of show talent rather than show theme. That's kind of the way I like to put it. Sometimes I feel like the things I learn is that the times you're most likely to make a profit is when you sell what people like, what people want to buy, not necessarily what you want to make, not necessarily what you like or what you're fascinated with or what you're interested in. It's just the work I say that can come along this way, make us all see a little fine way of working our lives, and make us all feel like we're doing so much better than we've done before. And this was just my blessed afternoon today. kind of got to, I mean, I made some new friends recently, but the good little thing was I got to play a game with them. That was the really little wonderful thing I got to do. Felt like I just hadn't played a game in so long. Could tell you all stories about how I played Uno when I was in high school in the classroom sometime, but you know, in those days I didn't really like to play games and probably couldn't really. The problem was I just always wanted to be silly while playing the game in ways that really weren't fair to people who wanted to play the game. And I'd say whenever it came to Uno, you know, if you know what the rules of that game are, there were just times whenever I would try to play that game in school, and sometimes I would want to be silly, sometimes I would want to shout out colors that were not in the deck, like black and brown and things like that. And you know, you just kind of learn in life that some people just can't take all that silliness you have in you, and I've had too much of it in me all my life. A lot of the reasons I just couldn't fit in as a kid and do things with other kids was just because I just wanted to be kind of silly about things and not really take it as if it were of good interest. And then, you know, you just kind of come to see that there's little interests other people have, and you just learn how to handle it a little bit better. There were little things where I kind of saw that movie Maverick as a kid, and how that, you know, they were like playing poker on the cruise boat, and how, you know, some people would try to cheat by putting cards in their sleeves or cards in their jacket, and then they got thrown overboard. One time I was playing Uno my sophomore year, and I thought it would be so funny to stick cards in the desk. Not that I really wanted to cheat, but just thought I could do it just to be funny or something, but really wasn't funny to the people who wanted to play. So I got, I'd say, excommunicated from the game for all that silliness and foolishness of me. Say, the time in our life we learn things a little better. It's just kind of a thing where we see a little light in us. Oh, a little funny stuff, a little silliness now and then. But I find some people who play some games I can fool with. You know, somebody invited me to play Yahtzee once at McLeod's, and it was some people I had probably felt like I was just getting to meet. And you know, but the thing of it is, I didn't really play that because I didn't know how to play it. Thought it'd probably be a little too difficult for me, so didn't really bother to do it. And they were nice enough to offer me to play the game though. But you know, there's probably been a lot of offers I've had to decline for different reasons, and people have had to respectfully decline some of my offers too. You know, I always made all those religious CDs and MP3 discs that I handed out in the restaurants and bars when I was in there to hang out. And some people, you know, if they saw the name Jesus Christ on there, it probably wasn't something that was really for them, and they would say, I respectfully decline, because that was just kind of how it was in those days, you know. And I find out over time, you know, that this is just one of the ways where when you hand out stuff like that, people can kind of feel like religion is being forced on them, and you don't want people to feel that way. So it's just best to kind of learn to be considerate of others and what they really care about and what's important to them. It's all just stuff you kind of learn as all good as you go. And I appreciate the fact that some people come on here to watch these videos, hear what I have to say, and oh, the little things in life where we learn little random stuff as we go. I mean, I could talk a lot, I could talk on, and I'd say for a video it's easy to do because it's not just the kind of thing you do very well when you're around people. You know, you kind of have to give people a turn. But I appreciate the fact that all of y'all have come on here to watch me say and do and carve these things, and that's how it's going to go for a little while longer if you stay tuned in. And that's just what I have to say to those of you who watch. Finally got the last steps done on these coyotes, as I've shown before, where I finally got the labels on them. Just had to let them dry overnight so I could stick them in the oil. And I say that you all who are tuned in, there's going to be more to share in the next video, so stay tuned.